Welcome to a brand new episode of the Post Game. I am your host, Davion, and I'm joined by Emmett
Yo,
and Lillian.
What's up?
How are y'all doing today?
good,
Indubitably well.
good.
Good. Today we are back talking in our Let's Talk basketball series. Today we're talking about the Phoenix Suns. But before that, please leave a comment, like, subscribe. We really appreciate y'all's feedback and everything that y'all's opinion on everything that we say. So yeah, today we're talking about the Phoenix Suns. As we start all of these, give me what you think their highest ranking can be and their lowest.
I mean, they can easily be the one seed.
Yeah, I say one seed
They got most
highest.
of the talent. They could also be like the 4 seed.
I was going 4 as a like 3 or
Maybe
4 as a high.
4 the high?
Yeah.
I think they have the potential to be a 1. I don't think it will happen, but I think it's possible.
I think because all the drama going on with that team is surrounding the team and the players. Like I just feel like they will not click this season, and there will be a lot of losses that shouldn't be losses. What's your low?
My low is, my high is the one seed. My low is probably like a 7 seed.
Yeah.
I don't think they have that much of a fall from grace, but I mean a 5 seed's realistic.
What? Because that one game outside of the play-in is a 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say the low would be a 6 seed. High would be a 4 seed. Just because you get to seeding as a 4 doesn't mean you can. I mean, you don't go far in the playoffs. But playoff ranking, how far do you think they go into the playoffs?
I mean, depending on who they play. Second round. If they play the Warriors and the Mavericks in the playoffs, they're screwed.
Yeah.
I see them sneaking to the conference finals again, but that's my high.
I would say, what's that? The third round exit. I don't think they get to the conference finals this season. I just feel like there's just I think we see like when teams front offices are like bad, because like my philosophy is like if the top isn't okay, then the bottom won't be okay, and we see the top right now is struggling, and we see like there's drama inside of the team. Chris Paul being delusional about last season, and some other things going on. So I feel like this team just they don't understand what's going on, and I also feel like DeAndre Ayton does not want to be there. I think last season we saw that he took a lot of heat, and it's almost like a Ben Simmons situations where it's like he's gonna play because he got paid, but Ben didn't play, but like he's gonna be like mentally messed up because he was being called trash all of last season in the playoffs and in the playoffs when it mattered. And so I feel like this team will be a surprise shock. I feel like it will be, something that people didn't think. I definitely think it'll be brand new. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'd say just their whole team. They're locked into their roster for I think 4 of their 3 of their 4 is like locked in until like 2025-26 season. So like they don't really have much leeway to, sign somewhere or trade for someone else because they've got a lot of these guys on their books. So I don't know. I want to say all this drama and stuff is going to get kind of put to rest to start out the season. Like I think people are overhyping it, and like we see teams choke all the time in the playoffs, and they come back and are the same team, and sometimes do better, sometimes do worse. But I see them being back to their old form. Like that's my overlook on it.
I mean, I think that obviously so much is happening management-wise, teams getting sold because of Sarver. I think that when you have guys like Jay Crowder demanding trades, the team just doesn't seem like it's working well. Because there's a difference between Kevin Durant wanting out and Bossman 99 wanting out. I mean, and that's no disrespect to Jay Crowder. I think he's a really solid basketball player. He provided a lot for Phoenix, but he's not on the level of even his teammates Devin Booker and Chris Paul. I also think something that's important to point out is Chris Paul seemingly learned nothing from. I mean, I don't think it's the exact quote, but I believe he said something along the lines of he didn't learn anything from Game 7 last year. And it's, you choked Game 7, you choked in the finals. If you're not learning anything from that, why would anybody expect this team to go into the playoffs and not choke?
Yeah.
And I also think Devin Booker mentally is probably fine. But I think the chemistry between the entire team, DeAndre Ayton during media day, didn't look like he wanted to be there. He kept saying he wanted to, but his face was near emotionless. And I just think there's so much happening in Phoenix that it's too much of a mess for the team to be successful.
So this team, I think Jay Crowder adds a big piece to this team. I think he is like one of the big leaders when it comes to getting the team really like involved and saving them in some like particular times. So there's two players on this team that are the leaders, the captains, the alphas, and that's Devin Booker and Chris Paul. We're going to take time to talk about both of them. So firstly, Chris Paul, CB3. What's your opinion of Chris Paul?
I think Chris Paul is – I don't want to say overrated because I don't think he's overrated. I think he's had an amazing career. But at the same time, I think he's done some things that are questionable. I think he's a great person. But, like, on the court, there have been times where players have said, yeah, he crossed the line saying something or whatever, which I get there's trash talking and whatever. But we've also seen him push players when they're midair and, stick his leg out or whatever. And so I do question on the court if it's when the line is crossed between smart basketball and dirty basketball. And I think generally he's a smart basketball player, but I think there are dirty plays he makes. I also think that he's one of the highest IQ point guards the league has ever seen. So I think there's a mixture of feelings from me about Chris Paul.
So I feel pretty much the same exact way. I think Chris Paul he's a very smart, talented, top 20 point guards of all time. But then there's a thought of, but he hasn't won anything, right? And I understand there's players that are great in the Hall of Fame that hasn't won anything, like Charles Barkley.
AI.
But yeah, AI as well. But like Chris Paul, he's on paper, stat wise, he's fantastic. Top 10 Hall of Fame. But then like you see him in game, you see like the career he's had, and it's like, what have you done? Like there's no substance, and you've made it. You made it to the finals once, twice, max. You've been to all these different teams and haven't really taken them anywhere. Like you're a great leader, but there's just no substance in your leadership. And so like that's my knock on Chris Paul. But like there's not enough there for me to say he is, he can really lead this team, because I've never really thought of Chris Paul as somebody I would want to start my franchise around.
I think Chris Paul's an amazing regular season leader.
Definitely.
To the playoffs, but once he gets there, it looks like he's out of his element, and the leadership almost disappears. Because like we saw Oklahoma City starting the season had like a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs, and he carried that team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not going to put them not doing anything in the playoffs on him. That was not a good team. He was the centerpiece of that team. But then Phoenix, gets to the finals, they're up 2-0, he falls apart. And then last year gets to Game 7 against the Mavericks, and they look like an AAU team playing an NBA team.
Yeah.
So, only ever been to one finals, choked it away, has a history of choking 2-0 leads. I think he's a great regular season leader, but the playoffs are not his thing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. That leadership, those little tricks he does, like work in the regular season, but I mean, it goes way back before like he got to Houston or OKC or Phoenix. Like, I mean, the Clippers never made it to the conference finals ever. From what I've seen, when he goes up, I think he gets a little cocky and thinks that, he has the leverage, which he does, but it doesn't look like he comes out with the same kind of energy as other games. So like, for instance, like if y'all remember when they played the Clippers in the conference finals, and he went crazy in Game 6 and like abused Pat Bev. I don't know if y'all saw Pat Bev like just shove him to the ground because he got in his head so much. And then they go up 2 games against Milwaukee, and then like you just kind of see them like, laughing during the press conference, like, yeah, we played out of our minds, like that was great. And then you lose. So I mean, I just don't see a roster that like makes me trust him as like a player in the postseason, like you said.
I mean, is it one of those things where it's like he just doesn't fit because his play style is so it's so unorthodox, and it's so like regular season like it relies on the regular season, and it does not work in the playoffs, and we've seen it time in and time out. And I think his leadership, I think he understands that he's a leader, and I think he understands that he's a good leader. But then you get to the peak, and it just dries up. And granted, there has been injuries in some seasons where he hurt his shoulder, his ankle. All these. There has been seasons where injuries have really killed him. But I would say that like majority of the time, Chris Paul just isn't the leader that this team needs, and I think this team is falling apart in front of our eyes. Aiden last season, Crowder this season. We don't know. There's just no plan for this team right now. So talking about Chris Paul, the other guy, Devin Booker. Some people called him the Kobe Bryant of the next generation. Some people called him, one of the best in the league. What's y'all's opinion of him?
I think, firstly, I hate that whenever people call him the next Kobe Bryant. There's no next Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe's Kobe.
Kobe was a different breed.
It's not Booker. It's not Tatum. Yeah, he was their mentor, and that's amazing. I'm sure they miss him very much. Kobe was Kobe, and Booker's Booker, and Tatum's Tatum.
Okay, a question before you continue. Who's better, Tatum or Booker?
Tatum.
Oh.
Tatum, because at least he got to the finals before he crumbled.
Hilarious. That's very funny. I like Tatum a lot. I think he is a top player in this league, and so I would agree Tatum definitely is. But back to your point. I'm sorry.
I think that Booker is similar to Chris Paul in the way that the way they play basketball works so much better in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it comes back to the same reason. There's a reason Chris Paul only has like 1 win with Scott Foster reffing in the playoffs. And it's because once you get to the playoffs, it gets more physical. You don't get the little, tap fouls. Like it's a physical game. And Devin Booker and Chris Paul, their game is built. Not to say they can't go get a bucket. They do go get a bucket, but their game is built to take advantage of the foul rules. And that disappears in the playoffs. And I think that's why we saw Game 7 against the Mavs. They just couldn't do anything.
I think Booker has a similar – I mean, he has less of a track record because he's still pretty young. But like, the 2 playoffs, like he also looked, pretty cocky. Like he has an ego. Like he thinks he's the guy, and in some games, yes, he is. But like, I think that gets to his head too much. And similar to Chris Paul, just like, I mean, it was just such a great example against the Mavs when like he took the ball from Luka. They were just, taunting during the game, and then you're like, oh yeah, we're going back to Phoenix up 3-2, yeah, or tied 3-3 or something like that. And then, I mean, they can take that, but we'll get Game 7. So, like, yeah, it'll be interesting because I mean, I'll bet these two like will play this year, probably next year, and like if they still don't have something, then Chris Paul's probably gone. But yeah, I think just y'all harped on it, but the regular season part is big.
I mean, remember what Lucas said is that everybody likes to talk smack when they're up, and then he went to their town and dropped 50. He blew them out by 50, I think it was at one point.
Yeah.
And so it looks like, and talking about the Suns just now, like it really opened my eyes that like the Suns are such a team who are like, we're not even the Suns. Chris Paul and Devin Booker, like they're the type of players who when they're up, they can run their mouths, they can do all this stuff, but they can't back up their trash talk. And in every single season, we've seen that happen. And Chris Paul, his entire career, we've seen him run his mouth and lose because obviously he doesn't have a ring. And so, I mean, until they realize that like you need to be humble and like stay humble, they won't win anything. But anything else? I mean, but I would say one thing: the others that the Suns have is really they're really good, especially with a great head coach in Monty Williams. But the others like Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Payne, like they have a lot of guys a lot of depth that can really make a difference. I think that can help them in their turmoil of the season.
Yeah, I think yeah, you touched on it. Cocky is definitely the right word to describe the Suns. I mean, there was some early in the regular season, like we hadn't even hit Christmas yet. Warriors were playing the Suns, and the Suns came out on top. I think it was in Phoenix, and then they're trying to like show off, and they're lifting weights in the tunnel. And that video went viral and blah blah blah. And I see every once in a while the NBA still posts about it, talking about the Suns. And then the Suns get to the playoffs. They're really cocky because they win in the first round. It was not an impressive series win against the Pelicans, but they're cocky coming off of that. And then they go play the Mavs. They go up like 2-0 against the Mavs, and they're talking their shit. And then Luka is Luka, and they lose in 7. And all of a sudden the Suns don't seem so cocky, but it's like they didn't learn their lesson from the finals. They got up, were cocky, and then blew the lead. And so they did the same thing against Dallas. And it really comes down to, will they learn their lesson this year? Probably not. But and also Ayton just doesn't look like he wants to be there anymore.
Yeah.
I think he was legitimately Indiana, and the Suns matched it, and he didn't really have a choice.
I completely agree. So with this team, we've said that they have potential to like make it make it deeply in the playoffs. Is there any chance of a finals visit this season?
No. Not in the West.
Yeah. I don't see it. I mean, there's always a chance, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I think it's too far past that. Like this team it's like one of those things where it's like you make there's one problem and all that one problem spreads to everybody else, and I think right now it's spreading around Phoenix. And so, any final thoughts when it comes to Phoenix? No.
I'm good.
All right. Well, Lillian, Emmett, I appreciate y'all for joining today. I have been your host, Davion. This has been the post game. Peace.